Okay, so last Thursday, I got up early in the morning, and at 9 a.m. my time, I made a speech to a Congress in Yalta that was held to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the famous conference in Yalta in 1945. I'm going to read that speech now and record it on my iPhone because I want to. Okay, because I think it's important. So here we go. Fasten your seatbelts. Okay. To quote what's her name, that actress, this could be a bumpy ride. Anyway, here we go. Thank you for inviting me to speak here today on this historic anniversary. Last month, I addressed the Security Council of the United Nations on the 10th anniversary of the signing of the Minsk II agreements. Anyone who's interested can check it out at UNTV. I stuck that day to the agenda, which was Ukraine and Crimea and the Donbass and the war in Ukraine. But I did include mention of the right sector and Stephen Bandera and the place of white supremacism in Ukrainian politics today. But I did not digress. Today, I am not restricted by protocol, and so, with your permission, I will digress as I see fit. Okay. Every morning when I awake, my chest tightens and tears well up. I get a grip and gird my loins for the fray. What can I do today? Why do I prepare for battle every day? Because every day we are fighting the existential battle for the soul of the human race. If we live in the West, our government is aiding and abetting the genocide of the indigenous people of Palestine by the rogue state of Israel. They're doing it in real time in front of our very eyes. It feels like a nightmare, but it's not a nightmare. It is real. We pinch ourselves in disbelief. This can't be real. If we have children, they tug at us. Mama, Papa, make them stop. Hey, Mum, Dad, why doesn't somebody make them stop? Papa! What about the United Nations, Papa? What about international law, Papa? What about the Geneva Conventions, Papa? They're killing the children, Papa. They're burying them under the rubble, Papa. Make them stop. And then I take a breath. Why do you think I'm here in Yalta? It's a good question, though, isn't it? What about international law? What about the United Nations? Okay, we're here today to mark the 80th anniversary of a meeting between three men, Joseph Stalin, Winston Churchill, and Franklin D. Roosevelt. They met here in Yalta in March 1945, or was it February? I think it was February, to sort of divvy up what was left of Europe after the Second World War. They did that without too much fuss. But they also, no, it was March. It was March. Sorry, I'm getting a bit confused. But they did that without too much fuss, divvying up. But they also discussed trying to replace the League of Nations, which had failed to prevent the Second World War, by creating a new international forum that might succeed where the League of Nations had failed. Good idea. Tighten up the rules a bit. Call it the United Nations. That has a nice ring to it. So they did. The United Nations Charter was drafted and signed in San Francisco that very summer. And lo and behold, surprise, surprise, our three chums from Yalta, from the Yalta summit, joined by France and China, the other two perceived victors of World War II were all appointed permanent members in the most important council of the newly formed United Nations, the Security Council. And what is the Security Council? And why is it important? Well, the Security Council was and is important because its primary responsibility is, and I quote, maintaining international peace and security, including determining threats to peace and taking measures to restore it and establishing peacekeeping operations, end quote. Good God, sounds great. Did it work? Well, there was just one little wrinkle. Aha, go on. Well, Stalin, Churchill and Roosevelt had agreed in Yalta that not only should they be permanently represented in the Security Council, but they should also each individually have the power to veto any Security Council resolution. Of course, France and China chimed in. Oh, me too, me too. So now it was the Big Five, and the Big Five made it very clear to the smaller nations, either you have a UN Charter with our veto or no UN Charter at all. I say, that wasn't very democratic, was it? Well, no. But the United Nations founding principles sounded pretty good. So all the little guys agreed. These are the founding principles. 1. To maintain international peace and security. 2. To protect human rights. 3. To deliver humanitarian aid. And 4. To uphold international law. Excuse me. And did they? Well, they did number 3 a bit, but the other stuff was too difficult, hamstrung as they were and still are by the Big Five's power of veto in the Security Council. I have no doubt they did the best they could. Anyway, after the war, Germany was duly carved up into 4 zones, occupied by the military of the US, the UK, France, and the USSR. But there's more to the story. 3.5 years later, on the 10th of December 1948, the fledgling United Nations reconvened in Paris. And among other things, they signed the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. That declaration, partially written, I'm told, by Eleanor Roosevelt, FDR's missus, one for the ladies. Thank you, ladies. The 30 articles were then enshrined in international law, or so we were led to believe. It was a very big deal. At the time, the dream of equal human rights for all our brothers and sisters all over the world, irrespective of their religion or ethnicity or nationality, was a very big deal. Think about it. Think about it. If adopted, it would probably have signaled the end of all war forever, and absolutely definitely would have removed the threat of another genocide forever. What a fitting way to remember and also universally condemn the very recent attempted genocide of European Jews by the Nazis. Our leaders, with hand on heart, made it a solemn promise: never again. as they made that promise, and I hate to have to be the one to tell you this, some of them had their fingers crossed behind their backs. Some of them were telling porcupines. Yeah, some of them were lying. Some of them swore to support and uphold the universal human rights, but they didn't really mean it, because some of them were actually ethno-supremacists, like the Nazis had been. People who believe that some people should have more human rights than others. They believe in human rights, but only for a chosen few. The few that they choose. Let me give you a fleeting glimpse. Come back with me to Palestine in 2007. I was in an UNRWA jeep with a lovely woman called Allegra Pacheco, who worked for the UN. We were heading north through the occupied territory towards Jenin on a brand new highway when I remarked, "Well, at least they have nice roads." "Yes," said Allegra. "They're for Jews only." "Don't be silly, that's ridiculous." "Yes," she replied, "it is ridiculous, but it's also true. If you live here, you have to be Jewish to be allowed to use the road." The point I'm making is that the Israelis don't see it as a contradiction that genocide was wrong in the Second World War in Europe, in Germany, or say Warsaw in Poland, but it's okay now in Gaza because the jackboot is on the other foot. So the Declaration of Universal Human Rights was a bit of a charade, really, part of a sort of masked ball to celebrate the divvying up of the spoils of war. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news. Sorry to spoil the party. Most of you are too young to remember. I'm almost too young to remember myself. But I can read, and I have read the history. Take note, Piers Morgan. Anyway, we all dutifully wore our masks to the ball. We declared our attachment to all the right sacred cows. We all declared hand on heart that we cared about human rights, freedom, democracy, and the rule of international law. And yet, now, the jackboot is on the other foot. And so, 35 years ago, I'm digressing now. 35 years ago, in 1990, I wrote a song called Too Much Rope for an album I made called Amused to Death. These are a couple of lines from it. I won't sing it, it's a bit high. You don't have to be a Jew to disapprove of murder. Tears burn my eyes. Muslim or Christian, mullah or pope, preacher or poet, who was it wrote, give any one species too much rope and they'll fuck it up. Well said, sir. All right, I'm going to fast forward 79 years from March 1945 to April the 18th last year. Excuse me. On that day, April the 18th last year, the UN Security Council convened to vote on a draft resolution submitted by Algeria, the temporary chair, recommending the state of Palestine be admitted to full UN membership. The draft resolution was not adopted due to a veto by the United States of America. There were 12 votes for the resolution, 2 abstentions, the UK and Switzerland.